My name is Jan Barnetson. I'm 75 years old. I consider myself very fortunate to be in good physical and mental condition at this time of my life, because in this day and age, 75 is considered reasonably old, although I'm sure in the future people will live well into their hundreds. I grew up in a town called Grahamstown. My mother's family were 1820 settlers. They came from England in 1820 and landed on the coast near Grahamstown. My father's family came from Scotland in 1822. But my aunt, who was an historian at the Albany Museum in Grahamstown, made a family tree for my grandmother before she died, and we actually go way back to the 16th century to a Portuguese seaman by the name of Pereira, which I think in this country is now Ferreira, and also to a French Huguenot who came to this country to get away from the religious persecution in France in about 16-something, and his name was Terre Blanche, and there are plenty of Terre Blanches around today. My maiden name was Murray. I consider myself an above-average person, simply for the qualities that I was born with. One of the big regrets of my life is that I have not made the most of them. But I have a wonderful family. I'm lucky to be married to a wonderful husband. Of course, we've had our ups and downs because marriage is never easy. But we have 3 great kids, and they've all done very well for themselves. And then something happened which changed my life. I have a twin sister, and we both went to the United States on the American Field Service program, during which time my parents moved up to Pretoria, because my father was the founder headmaster of a school called St. Albans College. So we came back to a new home, and we had been at Rhodes University in Grahamstown for 1 semester, and we had to go to Pretoria University, which was very Afrikaans. It was rather like an Afrikaans girls' high school. You weren't allowed to smoke on campus, and girls were not allowed to wear trousers on the campus. Can you imagine that in this present day and age? Anyway, life changed considerably, and I've spent most of the rest of my life in Pretoria. I did try to finish my degree, but I had 3 children in 28 months, and I did write some exams, passed some, failed some, and I thought I'll just wait until the children are a little bit older, and of course I never got back to it. So that is my biggest regret in life. But I've led a very full life. My main interests are birding, music, cooking, and things like that. And I am a happy 75-year-old. The things that I've done in life that I am proud of: I became vice head girl of my school, not head girl, deputy leader of the choir. I've always been second everything. I was the netball captain, had colours for swimming and hockey. I played Northern Transvaal under-21 hockey after we came up to what was the Transvaal. During my married life, I have really been in a support situation more than doing things on my own, but I have organized things like my 50th school reunion down in Grahamstown. I put that all together, and if I'm pushed, I can do things like that. But life is very easy if you just let it take you along. Things that have made me happy in my life are the fact that I have a reliable, loving, ambitious husband who has kept us in a very good situation for 52.5 years. As I said before, it hasn't all been easy, but here we are, and things are great. I have loved my bird watching. On his travels around Africa, because he was in the property business, looking at different properties, I've been with him, and had I not taken my binoculars and my bird book, I would have been totally bored. But I learned a lot about birds on my own, and I love them, and I listen to them. And I haven't had a cook since my children left school, which is now many years ago, and I really love cooking and trying new things, and that's a big interest for me. My husband and I both love music, and we're always listening to classical music, and where we live in Machubiskloof, we have our friends up from Pretoria for weekends, and we do operas and concerts on DVD, and we try and promote music in that area where there's not a lot of culture. I love my garden. It's very large, so it never looks fantastic, but I do enjoy working in it and what comes out of it, especially my new vegetable garden, which has chicken wire all the way over the top and down sides to keep the birds and the monkeys out. Another great form of happiness for me is that we are extremely fortunate in having our 3 children and their families in this country. Most people's grandchildren are all over the world these days, and every couple of years we get together as a family and we go down to a place called Cobb Inn on the ex-Transkei coast, which is really beautiful. Not a lot of people, cows on the beach, a lovely river, a lovely bathing beach, and the whole family seems to enjoy it. And it's wonderful spending time with all of them, especially now that quite a few of our grandchildren are off to boarding school, so we don't see that much of them anymore, and one's at university. But we try to get together as much as we can. Now, some little lessons that I've learned from life is that you actually have to rely on yourself. You can't be sorry for yourself. You just have to take things into your own hands and get on with it if you want anything to go your way. You can't expect somebody like a mother or an aunt or a husband to take care of you all the time. You have to be an independent person, otherwise life just fizzles away into a sort of a nothing. So you really have to be careful not to let your life disappear like that. And another little lesson is that to accomplish anything, you've got to try hard until it actually happens. A lot of things in my life I have let go, which I shouldn't have. And for that, my great regret that I didn't finish my university degree. You actually have to persevere until something comes right. During my life, times have changed unimaginably. The technology, to begin with. We didn't have televisions. We hardly had proper reception on radios when I was a child. And the farm where my mother grew up, which had been in the family for over 100 years, had a telephone on the wall, and you picked up the receiver and asked if the line was busy, and then you rolled a handle, and if exchange came on, you told which number you wanted. And the person on exchange was actually very useful because she knew everything that was going on in the district, and she would keep everybody up to date on stuff which she probably shouldn't have listened to, but she did. And I remember on the farm, we had a thing called an outhouse. That is a toilet that doesn't flush. And it was way out in the garden somewhere. It was rather nice to go and sit out there and listen to the birds, until one day the whole ceiling was covered in things called corn cricks, great big crickets about that long, and they made funny noises, and then it was quite terrifying going in there. But my uncle, who owned the farm, actually got rid of them, so that was okay. But when we got a flush toilet, that was amazing. Now, of course, this huge old house has got plenty of flush toilets in it. And other things that have changed. On the farm, my mother and my aunt used to preserve vegetables. They would dry fruit and cook vegetables and put them in bottles and all this sort of things, because you just couldn't get stuff in the winter that was around in the summer. And nobody does that anymore, I don't think. I actually make marmalade, but I don't think anyone under the age of 50 actually eats marmalade anymore. And I did read somewhere the other day that marmalade is a word in the English language that is used less and less. Of course, this country has changed enormously over the years. First of all, we had terrible apartheid. Then we had 1994 with the first independent elections. I was actually an election monitor, which was very interesting. And it's quite relieving, I don't know if that's the right word, to be able to converse with and treat people of other colors as equals, because in the past that was not possible. We've had some dreadful political happenings in this country, and things are not looking great at the moment, but times change, politics change, and I'm sure it will all come right eventually. If I have any advice to my children and grandchildren, I really do think they should continue to keep the family together, because it is a source of comfort, and I think one fits into a world if one has people of like-mindedness somewhere close to you. And I really do believe that if you can continue to be close to people, life is a lot easier. And one thing that I would like to say is, please look after this planet. Don't use plastic unless you really have to. Wash your cling wrap and reuse it, because it is not recyclable. And wash your plastic bags and reuse them as well. And try to store water in glass bottles rather than plastic bottles, because glass is recyclable, and the more glass you put into the recycling bin, the less they have to make new glass, because they can reuse it. And plastic has wreaked havoc in our oceans and all over the land. And also another thing, please try to preserve all our animals. The latest on the endangered list is the dear, gentle giraffe. My name is Jan, and I'm not forgotten.